Okay, ladies and gentlemen, if you're all available, we would like to tell you a bit more about organization. First, let me introduce myself. I am Pierre Antoine, co-founder and the president of Pranio Foundation. It's a non-profit, but also active in business. We have been allowed to have commercial activity, mainly with individual, through the way of coaching, for helping people evolve and go beyond some of their belief systems, some of their limits. We have a consulting activity, and the presentation that we will give you today is mostly based on our field experiences. We are working mostly with multinationals, but also with large, small and mediums, from a couple of hundreds of people to multi-thousands. So, first of all, is this working? Yeah. Okay, we wanted to introduce our speech by the current consequences of the management styles of the organizations. This is a report that Gallup have made in 2011-2012, and they are doing this analysis almost every year. And the consequences of our management styles are pretty, if I may, okay. I wanted you to be able to show everything, to see everything. Okay. 13% of the people that have been surveyed are actually engaged at work, which means, okay, okay. 30% of people are engaged at work, which means the only people that are creative, that are passionate, that bring fuel and energy into a corporation, they're all just 1 out of 10. 63% are just sitting, okay, checking the box and waiting for orders, but they do not add value, they do not bring their creativity. And 2 out of 10, 24% of people are destroying value. Okay, just these figures, we should feel a sense of there's something wrong with the way we work. And we all have had a job, and we all remember our first day. We were so excited. We were so happy. It was a new corporation, new culture, new people we're going to meet. And look at the figures, couple of months or years after. What happened? And, statistics are statistics, okay? But this costs 500 billion in the United States just in loss of productivity, okay? We are not talking the cost, the health cost, because all these people that are disengaged and happy, they will be likely to feel burnout, to feel diseases, and so there is a huge cost with health insurance and hospital. So just the loss of productivity is amazing. So there is something that is not working properly with our way of managing, with our way of producing and of working. That's the conclusion of my first slide. Second slide, can anything good be obtained with the current mindsets? Let me do some kind of history. In the 70s, the power was for engineers. The point was to produce. So we needed good quality manufactured products and services. The focus was on quality. Beginning of the 80s and 90s, we had so many products that we had to sell them. The key then was marketing, how to distribute the product and services, how to make them reach the customer. So we invented 4Ps, we invented a lot of marketing techniques to reach the customer. Then finance arrived early, end of 90s, beginning of 2000. And the point was then to control costs, okay? So what have we done for the last 40 years? Mostly we've changed processes, operating procedures, and we've changed the power. At no point of time we reached the culture. So we changed structure, we changed processes, but never touched the culture. We've never touched people. How do they behave? Are they happy at work? These questions have never been touched within the last 40, 50 years. And this is the sense of this little horse, you know? He's leaving the carousel because as long as we turn around and around and around, we always see the same landscape. Oh, we should change this procedure. Oh, we should change this operating process. No, what is at stake, from our belief, is something different. And this picture shows you some very ancient belief from Plato, which is the cave. And I believe we are all acting here. The vast majority of people is living through shadows. And the very few people that have gone some upper level of consciousness, they are scary for the vast majority of people. And so what we believe is that if we want to change, do something different, we have been talking yesterday about this paradigm shift. It's not through changing a process, it's through changing our belief system. And all the geniuses of the past always told us that no problem can be solved at the same level of consciousness that created it. We need to grow, we need to evolve. As mankind, as species, as leader, as employee, we need to do that. We need to expand our consciousness level. What would that mean? And I would like to take a few time to discuss about this. First, the symbol. Silo, synergy, and systemic. We have decided to simplify what we have called stirring up a level of consciousness. There are, in history, in literature, whatever, you can find 7 grades, you can have spectrum of colors. Okay, we all fine with this. We just say, okay, egocentric, starting with me, my, to social-centric, expanding. I need to understand that for being happy, I need the other around me to be happy. To global-centric, which is, I need everyone to be happy. And there is something like the area of care. First, I need to care of myself. Then, I need to care about others, and etc. and expand this. So, of course, this is a spectrum. No idea for us to say there's 3 steps. No, this is a spectrum, but we wanted to make it easy and simplify it this way. So the first stage, this is every man for himself. There is no interconnection. There is no understanding that me, for example, if I'm a finance leader, I don't care about the sales guys. There are these guys who are living on the field who don't really understand them. I care about good accountant. But some point of time, I really feel that all the turnover that needs then engineering costs, sales, etc., they are produced by someone, the sales guy. But I also need to understand that there are fiscal implications because, for example, my company is on the stock exchange. So there are interactions. I cannot live by myself alone. I'm in a system that is more global. So when I had this thinking ability, which was, I think Mr. Likota said, simplistic ideas are killing us. Well, that's the very first stage, when every man is for himself and wolf is a man for the man is a wolf for himself, then yes, simplistic, linear thinking is fine. But as soon as I need to interact with other one, I need some other kind of thinking. More parallel thinking, because his thinking, he has belief, and I need to interact with him. So I need at least 2, 3, 4 ways of thinking beside my own. And of course, when I was living in the silo, I was only focusing on short term. Key here is survival. I need to survive. And now, I have a feeling of anxiety, of fear, which drives rapid decision making. Very visible, very concrete. Some keywords here is keep it simple and stupid for everybody to understand, so that there are quick decision making, quick progress visible. Here, I can understand that I need longer term, because having results in 3 months, like stock exchange is asking every corporate, is not compatible with long-term strategies. And so here, I would like to spend a few time on here, the fuel for progress. This is for us very key. For a leader to progress, first, there got to be competition. Because competition is driving excellence, operational excellence. I want to be better than the other. And this is a key driver. But at some point of time, I shall not destroy the value of the other. There is some point of time where competition is destroying overall value. So I need collaboration. I need a different fuel for progressing. And for those, the happiest, that have reached this level of consciousness, compassion is the only thing that is needed. So this was what means stirring up a level for us, for a leader. The topic of today is organization. And this is something that we have brought up in the market, is understanding that organization is also a living organization. It has to grow. Not only the people, but the organization is kind of a living body, a living cell. As we are all made of cells, and this is a body, an organization is also made of employees. So there shall be the same logic to be applied to organization. And this is what I propose you. So, conclusion for this slide regarding the leader is, as we truly care for... Sorry?
Yeah, don't do that. Don't do that.
Okay.
Yeah. The yellow, the orange arrow at the left end.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Otherwise,
Sorry. Yeah. So as we truly care for always more beings, so this is as we progress from the silo to synergy to systemic, there is an enhanced quality of living, an enhanced quality of thinking and loving, true caring arise. So now, what about organization? Okay, we've used the same logic. So first of all, here in the silo, the financial model is maximizing of its parts. This is where we know this battlefield for budget. If we have worked in corporation where we had several business lines, for example, it's every business line for himself. We have to maximize, and the belief behind it is if everybody is performing well, then the overall company is performing at best. But what we came to know is that there are antagonist interests. At this level of thinking, nobody can think of it. But here it becomes very clear that for some of the business line to be highly productive, they depend on each other because we have limited resources. Whether they are material, whether they are human, they are limited resources. So there is a common battle for limited resources. So there are antagonist interests. So there gotta be somewhere a level of intervention where this is challenged. Okay? But here, when we reach the systemic thinking, this is optimization of the whole. And sometimes the company itself is included in the value chain. For example, if we take the tourists market, can it make sense that all the men who work and build the hotels make large amount of money, and then the hotels, some are wealthy, some just die? If we reach a level where most of the hotels die because the economy is dying, then the one working in the building are impacted. So if you are a building company, you cannot say, I don't care about the economy. You depend on the tourists. And tourists are also a consequence of the brand of a country. So we need to understand, financially speaking, that every product line maximizing his own interest has limitation that can only be overcome by a systemic approach. Here, when we have a silo thinking, the key is to bring a new product to the market. This is short-term, this is visible, this is concrete, material, everybody can understand. But creating a new brand is far more complex. It has to be adapted by its customer. It has to be visible, and building a brand, everybody knows it takes 2, 3, 5 years. But creating a new market, something totally different. And in this paradigm shift, we need new markets. We need a different way to share the value among value chains. So the challenge here is creating new markets. Also, if you want to create a new market, then you need to understand you're going to fail. And you're going to fail quite often, actually. Because it takes courage. It takes leadership. Whereas to create a new product, you can think of the product by your own. So there is very limited interaction. But when you create a new brand, then you may be able to fail quite often. Maybe not that often than if you need to create a new market, but failure becomes a learning process. Failure is required. And one final word, with thoughtful leaders, competition was the driver for growth, then collaboration, and then compassion. What's the equivalent for a company? Well, first, when we are acting in the jungle, this is just profit, just money. Material, short-term, visible. But then, when you start creating a new brand and balancing antagonist interest, then your driver is the project to succeed. And what we're going to see the next slide, that the organizations that succeed have a purpose, and they are purpose-driven. So my conclusion for this slide is that they grow up and include always more complex independencies. Companies become more and more engaging and contributing to the whole. They become systemic partner of a society. They start to be purpose-driven. And this is possible. Okay? We wanted to have examples of large companies and smaller companies who made it. And I'm pretty sure that none of you know any of these leaders. Because most of them are just egoless. They don't care being known. It makes no sense. If truly they are purpose-driven, if truly they want their employee to be happy, to be creative, to be engaged, what's the point in being known? Vinit Nayar has been the CEO of a company which is called HCL, and he grew the company from 30,000 to 90,000 people with this kind of belief. This is more than 6 billion turnover. The Gore, Bill and his wife, who made the Gore-Tex, 3 billion and 10,000 people. And let me tell you a story. The current CEO is saying, when I was 20 years ago, the first an employee of Gore-Tex, I was received by Mr. and Mrs. Gore in their garden. We had a barbecue. They always enhanced the quality of living for the employee. They always enhanced that customer is key. And this is something we also see with Rich Chilling, who turned Harley Davidson into a company that was about to die, into a huge international now. Again, 4 billion turnover, 10,000 people. But I also wanted to show smaller companies, like Pult, which is biscuit industry, they're producing biscuits. Mr. Vakarian, he was a former finance guy, so his job was to invest in a company, cut job, lay off half people and just sell it when it was making profit. And he said, that's the easy way. I want to do something different. And he invests his own cash. And he said, the first thing he said is, let's bring everybody, all the employees together, and you will find the solution by yourself. You will define the strategy. I'm not. Same story with Jean-François Zobrist in Pavie. He says, the motto of the company is for and by the clients. It's every engineer, every man on the machine, this is an industry business, that is taking decision, investment decision, recruitment decision, laying off. Can you imagine? There's no need of employee, of manager, sorry. There's just the need of employee. Only productive people, not unproductive people. And I wanted also to have an example in the public sector to mention this is feasible. Laurence Vanet has been HR of the social ministry in Belgium, and she has done this. She applied the same principle. And instead of being a human resource director, she's a chief happiness officer. Wanted everybody to be happy. And this is successful enough that the time for a file to be treated was, I think, 18 months. And after a couple of months of her management, it turned it to 4. So much more efficiency. People are much happier. CVs keep on coming and arriving at her ministry. Where previously they had difficulty in recruiting because nobody wanted to work for that. So it works. Let me also introduce the work of Frédéric Laloux in his last book, Reinventing Organization. And he studied 12 companies in media, automotive supplier, every business, every size, some in the US, some in Europe. And he believed that these organizations he studied are performing much better than average, much better than their competitor, and because they have 3 characteristics. One is self-management. No need of boss, no need of decision makers, no need of unproductive people. Decisions are taken by the ones who are responsible for them. Wholeness. They all have a sense of belonging to a whole. They have an attachment to the society, to the country they live in, to the people, to their neighbor, to their customer who purchase their products and services. They want them to be happy. And an evolutionary purpose. They have a sense of purpose. They are here to serve. They are here to help. They are here to bring quality products. And these are not values that we all know in corporate social responsibility, etc. No, they are embodied. Every employee feels there is a sense of purpose. And this couple of days conference is about leadership. So what's the leader's role in such kind of organization if it's not decision making? But remains to the leader. Well, to initiate, to create the space, to be exemplary. Exemplarity, the fact that the leader truly embody, refuses to take decisions, truly allow initiative, autonomy, decision making. And no management doesn't mean no structure. That's probably the opposite. No management requires all the type of methods, all the type of processes, but information technology is really here to help. So we can go without a boss, we can go without heavy structure with different kind of organization. So a leader's authority is not needed when autonomous, responsible employees take decision. And in this company, in these 12 companies and the companies that show you before, some salary take decision like the salary of others. There are each of the employee decide which salary he wants to get. Same if there is a need to invest in a new machine or to go to a new market, they take their responsibility. And so in the end, this is a true bottom-up strategy, a strategy that is truly coming from the customer via the ones that are going to execute it. So let me take an example, Buurtzorg. You can find the more detailed example in Frédéric Laloux's presentation. Classic organization. In the 80s, this is the financial way of organizing a company that arrives. So, pyramid, they wanted economy of scale, they put finance guy like me, controllers who need to control the costs, and if you pay 100 a controller, he needs to find economy like 400 or 500 to justify his salary. So when you have large armies of financial controllers, you know that each year you're going to save costs. So they put standard times, call center, the business here is nursing at home. So they wanted to have nurses that are specific, that are specialized, because some cost, some don't. Some are younger, so they are affected to different kind of topics. But the more they specialize, the more they cost, the less they are used. This kind of thinking. And in the end, both the nurses and the patients hated this, because every day they had a new nurse, a new specialized nurse, who had only 3 minutes, because they were standard times. So one man said, okay, we have enough. And in 7 years, he turned the company from 10 to 8,000 employees, with only 25 people in the headquarters. And the job of these guys in the headquarters is mainly to teach the new guys coming to operate without a boss. There's no need of an HQ. And they have 80% market share. So the mutation of the organization that I shown you from the silo, the pyramid, to much more living organization, systemic thinking, has proved successful. The collective intelligence leadership is efficient. So what would that mean? It means evolving from the traditional way, value for the owner, the pyramid, and all that we know about standardization, centralization, etc., to value that is created and shared among the employee and among the value chain, where everybody is responsible, where strategy is built bottom up. This is possible, it works, and it makes more sense. But how to make that change happen? Well, first it needs different kind of leaders. First of all, when authority is concerned, or how to share innovation, or how to get new ideas, if we were in the ancient system, power comes from the position of authority. Now, power is a collective issue. And you can refer to this slide if you need to understand, for example, problem solving. Well, these are firefighters in the silo traditional way, but here they need to understand the root cause. So I led you to this slide. It shows the quality of the leaders to evolve. So when we have to enter a company and to propose such an evolution, how do we do? What is our method, our methodology? We called it the Pioneer way, to say that there were the Toyota way at some point of time, and then we believe that consciousness evolution needs different stuff. First of all, there is a good news. There is, in every company we visit, people that are already capable of operating in a systemic way. The first thing we do is act through these people. We only do some catalytic work with them, so we select, identify, and make them work in an environment that is fully transparent, no hierarchy, fully networked. Their job is to conceive purposeful and sustainable value proposition, business model. Then identify the ones that are already working at a synergy level, who already have this mindset of helping the other achieve his goal. Their job is to plan and deploy the project that the systemic people have created. And of course there is execution, operational excellence, that still remains with the silo. So, contrary to what I've shown you, which is let's get rid of every layer, we propose a most progressive way to get the people at the level of consciousness they are and to make them progress. In the end, we want to have companies that are triply sustainable, sustainable for the people, the employee, the customer, sustainable for the profits. We want good profit to be shared, and we want a planet that is respected. I have to hurry up a bit, but I want also to say that every leader has a role to play in this way of organization. The traditional leader who leads, the macho one, who leads by operational excellence, has a place. The one that is more capable of empathy, of influencing, to drive project, has his place. And the one that is fully collaborative, who just lead by the presence, by the exemplarity, also has his place. Which is not the case in current organization, where everybody has to comply by the standards, the so-called job description. So our conclusion, we think current organization and management styles are highly under-optimized. They are destroying engagement and creativity. We believe that the challenge is on the culture and not on fine-tuning any standard or any process. We need a paradigm shift. We need to address the culture. We need to address people. And we believe in the solutions we experienced. We tested on the field. This is why we believe in them. There is a way for every leader to extend his area of care. Caring for himself, caring for more people, etc., and caring for the whole. And there is a way for organization to grow the same way. To grow harmoniously and include always more complex interdependency within the corporation and the corporation within the value chain and within the society. And we have seen in this presentation large management freedom. So the freedom of management is working and performing very well. So just very last word, I promise. Before, the pyramid was serving the leaders, and after, the leader is serving the collective intelligence. Thank you so much for listening to us. So I think there is time now for the panelists to share their views. Okay.
Well,
Sorry. I think that when you started talking about how devastating in a way poor management can be, it reminded me of another incident which happened to be in your country when 14 managers committed suicide in France Telecom in a single year. Now, because it was obviously the only objective that the top executive set was performance, means intellectual profitability, and they were pushed to the extent that they just could not take it. And rather than really failing completely, so to speak, they preferred to commit suicide. And yet it was in the same country, they had some very avant-garde thinking in management. If I go back to the late 60s, early 70s, there was one company that made a decision. It was a multi-plant company. They had a number of different factories. But they had a rule that no factory could employ more than 400 people. And the reason was, maybe the thinking was perhaps too simple, but not. The reason was that they felt up to that number, everybody could know everybody else. And I thought that was very, very important. Everybody that worked there should know everybody else that worked there. Or you had people like, say, Olivier Hesser, when he was the head of Lafarge. I think, that company was an extremely interesting one, etc. So it's kind of interesting that within the same country, you can have actually so many different styles with different results, and particularly actually. But what becomes essential in it is, I think, to give people a certain stake in what they're doing. But it is not a stake, for example, shares of the company. For a while, again, those who only think in money terms feel that, well, it's a great motivator to workers even, to give them a few shares in the company. And I work for one with 60,000 employees all over the world. And, having 2 or 3 shares of that company actually had absolutely no meaning. But if you give the proprietary feeling to the people about not just what they do, but more how they do it, I think that makes tremendous difference. And I can start with an example. Let's say that, Pierre, who at 45 was named president of Volvo company, not such a long time ago. He had introduced one of the very interesting things. There's nothing more boring in a way than assembly line in a car manufacturing. So what he did, in addition to this normal line, if you like, he would actually have 12 stations where you could take the body of the car, produced up to that certain moment, and it would sunk and go on a track, and there would be a group of people, let's say 12, and they had the complete autonomy as to who does what, in what sequence, etc. So rather than the same man putting on the screws on the tires, who right, if you like, there within the 12, actually, they said, well, you do this, you do that, you do that. So first they had a variety of jobs, and secondly, complete control to the extent that it was possible to work in 2 shifts. And they could decide who comes to work at what time. They also had actually a room where they could have their coffee and take their rest period when they wanted, actually. It was entirely up to them. The only thing was that they had to put the car back on the main, if you like, assembly line, with certain number of operations performed. That was it. So, but then you mentioned the States. I mean, he had certainly a wonderful book about it by Douglas McGregor of the Sloan School of Management about the theory X, theory Y. Those that were in management certainly remember that. It's actually led to a discussion. Theory Y, theory X is precisely the man that dictated from the top down, etc. And period Y is the manager that involves others. But maybe not to slow down on that too much. You see, people have come up with this method of management by objectives. So let's say the boss gets his subordinate one by one, and he discusses with them. What is it that, you'll try to do and accomplish this year? So he was not telling him, you must do this. It was actually the man himself that said, well, I'll do this and this. So it was like a sort of a bit of a moral contract. Okay, it's your responsibility to do it, to go about it in the way, that's how. And it went all the way down to every worker. And that, again, gave every person sort of a stake, because he was, okay, I propose that I'll do this. And so he was, let's say, competing with himself rather than competing with others, in order to try to do better. So I just wanted to mention that method. But certainly I would agree that you have to create a certain kind of corporate culture. What are really the values? One of the interesting that I came across, and that surprised me because it happened to be in my own country, how much to have. There's a company investing in Ukraine that is operating in, say, oil and gas field, production, distribution, etc. Now, they published a non-financial report. They did publish a financial report, which is for shareholders, the usual stuff, but they published a non-financial report. Now, what was in it? What are the company's responsibilities first to employees? And that meant also not just, they have to pay a decent pay or whatever, but all the other things, to provide them with the best opportunities to kind of to develop, to be able to progress, etc. But to the clients, to the suppliers, and to the places in which community in which they're operating, to the environment, etc. I was shocked that I'd never seen huge multinationals coming up with something like that. Well, another oil and gas company, Shell, through tremendous PR, they're trying to sort of fool us into the fact that the only purpose that they have really is to try to get rid of the oil, not by selling it, but, somehow remove the need for oil. So, and that's what I meant actually by a corporate culture. You see, if you start with this, that the essential asset of corporation are the people, then you come up, say, with a culture or with a style of management which actually really motivate people and give them satisfaction from their work and make them good. Yes.
Just to remind you, we have only another 25 minutes for this section, important section. I know we could unfortunately please today. So request the panelists to be brief so that we have a chance to get questions and comments.
Oh, thank you for your visionary and inspirative presentation. Due to time's limit, I would like to ask you only one question. Once upon a time, I was a minister, and there was a legal department in my ministry responsible for solving cases. That department served as administrative court of appeal for people who were dissatisfied with issued construction licenses. When I came to be minister, I found tens of thousands open cases unsolved. I tried to find out ways how to motivate those people to do their jobs, but I had no authority to fire them. You have mentioned that 36 people in certain types of companies were just sitting, and 24 were not engaged at all. My impression was that 100% of people there was just sitting, and they were not interested at all in doing their job. So I tried. I asked pensioners who used to work there to work honorary for me. So they were doing well. I suppose that they were doing much better than they were employees in the ministry. But employees, when they heard that there is such possibility, asked me to give them opportunity for honorary, to work honorary job. Well, I replied, yes, it's possible, but we have to define how much job you have to do in your working time. They refused to talk about it. And then one young man came to the ministry. He was on the beginning of his career, and he started to close 10 times cases more than average employee in that department. I presented him as example which should be followed by the others, but nobody was interested in it. I would like to have you as advisor in that time. This episode was one of the most catastrophic and most unsuccessful missions in my career. Thank you.
I would like to pursue with maybe two living examples. The first one was in a factory 20 years ago in Europe. They had one issue with too much weight on the product that they were producing, and the company said, if your factory cannot reduce the average weight of the products you produce to be more cost effective, then we would need to shut down the factory. That was the situation. When I got into the factory, having no experience about business, I was first told that there is a very simple rule you need to follow in that factory. There are people who belong to different unions. They are not allowed to talk to each other. They have different colors of jackets. And so I went down to the factory floor, and guess what happened? They came to me because I was a neutral person, and they could talk to me. And after the blue came, the green came, and then the red guys, and then the yellow guys, and then the white guys. And sooner or later, just because I could provide a safe space, they started to talk to each other around me. And I think when we talk about silos and we use the symbol of three circles that don't touch each other, what we really mean is maybe these people are not allowed to dialogue. They're not allowed to relate to each other. And that means that there is no energy, no motivation, no pride into whatever is being done, no passion. And that can be changed very quickly. Just provide a safe space where people can meet, where people can get to know each other. Get to know each other around their different functions, but also about their private life. And that changes everything. That was one example in the private sector. Another example in the public sector, or a regional business, wine. That was very recent in a country I know well. If you take the whole value chain of wine making, from the production of the grapes, the production of the wine, the distribution, and the consumption, you can imagine how many players play on that value chain.
And when the whole economy goes down, what would you do? Wouldn't it be logical to bring everybody together, to kind of think together and bring collective intelligence together to create emergence, to create new value, create shared value, bring in the creativity of all the value chain players? And guess what was the situation? It was silo. Even some people dare to say on TV, we were not allowed to talk to each other. That's 21st century. So silo is beyond a concept. It is unfortunately way too often a reality. And to go into the systemic thinking is really all about letting people be themselves. What you said, Bogdan, was very interesting. Corporations talk about the responsibility of employees, of shareholders, of customers, and suppliers, and the communities. Are we allowed to talk about loving them? Relating really to them by looking eye to eye, by touching each other, by talking to each other about relevant topics. And I think that's where we want to go. The systemic thinking can happen inside a company, inside a ministry, inside any organization. But in the end, it's only about the quality of relationship between the people that matters. And I would like to come back to the very first numbers that Pierre-Antoine shared. It was said 500 billion is the cost. That was 2012. The number in 2013 went a little bit up, and it's only for the US to 1.2 trillion. And the numbers are the same for the public sector or the private sector. So the 13% worldwide engaged people, according to Gallup, has nothing to do with a corporation. It has nothing to do with a ministry. It has to do with the current state of consciousness of humanity. And I think I'll conclude with that. Thank you very much.
Now there is a space for interaction with the public.
I enjoyed the presentation and the comments, and I strongly believe in the value that you expressed. And it's very interesting that you choose a compassionate management. In my experience, in Italy, for example, I've been my non-profit organization consulted with the large private company like Eastport Fiat or a region or a ministry. I have found some real blocks, and those blocks often are coming from the unions that do not allow, just as some example, Fiat wanted to do like German companies and give a share of the profit by giving some stock to the workers. That was stopped by the union. The workers actually were interested, but the union voted down. In state-owned or partially owned companies, I have found another problem. What you were saying. That people, no matter if they don't show to work, if they stay with the doctor's signature on a certificate even a month or two, sometimes they have even 80% of the year that they, mark sickness, that's not sickness. They are prejudiced about working. They feel entitled that they should have a salary without working. I have found that employees and workers that like to take responsibility, they have enthusiasm, being empowered and to be responsible, actually are boycotted by other workers and the unions and this, and I'm finishing, on the face that the ILO show us that around the world, between 3 or 4% of the world product is wasted for stress at workplace, with also incredible cost for the health of the worker and all that. Now, in my opinion, these are objective blogs, and so you have to really include the unions if you want, otherwise they're going to block. I have found, honestly, a lot of difficulty, as well as privately owned company. If the boss is convinced, then it's all easy. In your opinion, or even better in your experience, did you have any failure? I did, was great on paper, but then the union, or I had work in it, and then the state, I'm suing the state because I did a lot of work that they don't pay. Although we had a contract. I see my friend from Ireland saying yes. So, this is great, I believe it, but I have found a lot of roadblocks, a lot of obstacles, a lot of barriers. What about your experience?
Additional question. Well, in course of preparations for this conference, I read one article written by Pierre O'Leary. He is a manager, CEO, and he gave 10 advices to people who intend to be excellent managers. One of the advisors was this: life is not fair. And he gave explanation. You as a manager, likely have favorites. That's life. If someone complains about it, tell him to get over it. Well, what did he tell? In fact, he explained that existing hierarchy and institutional structure is presented as it is given by nature. Life or nature is not fair. You can accept that there is no sense to ascribe fairness to the nature, but socially constructed relationships could and should be assessed from the perspective of their outcomes, because those outcomes have been results of previously made decisions and actions. So it seems to me that advice by Kevin O'Leary is totally opposite to your approach.
Thank you. First of all, I'm very impressed with the report that heard here. And frankly, many things are recognizable because I have the organization and what you have said fits very well into the organizational practices and also in my experience with the organization. But on this other side, I'm a little bit confused because we are actually started talking about effective managers. I'm not sure to what extent this reflects the leadership issues. And not that I'm saying that all managers by the core are not or cannot be good leaders. They are human beings, and I'm far from stating that, a person who works for an NGO by the core is an ethical person, and while the person working for a business community by the core is not an ethical person. It could be absolutely opposite, and there are lots of examples of that when very unscrupulous people have the different civil society organizations, while people working in business and leading business are very ethical. Though I would say that the pressures of the business in both, they make it a much bigger challenge to remain an ethical person in business surrounding. That's for sure. And here I come to the main issue that I wanted to raise. To what extent ethical management is compatible with the current economic system? This is the biggest issue, because I think that today we live in a very, well, I've said already, dehumanized world. And dehumanized world, it's practically impossible to talk about the level of the humanization. It is dehumanized. I remember that there was a book many years ago, I think it was Patrick Buchanan who wrote the book, maybe 15 years ago. The book was called The Death of the West. And he was talking about the situation that the Kipling market gods have pushed aside the God of Bible, or the Bible. And I'm not quoting, of course, literally, but he was saying that sex, money, profit, success has become the new gods of, well, he was talking about America, of course, of modern America. But today it's of all the world, because thanks to or because of the end of the Cold War and collapse of the Soviet Union, I think that the biggest winner of that was not the West, it was not the East, but it was the market. Because market has become a dominant, let me say. And decoupled from all the challenges of working with a different system, the market has decided not to turn around on social concerns and anything, and the market has evolved in something much less human than it was during the split of the world, because the market had to keep in mind there are some social things that need to be taken into account in order to be successful. So I would say that this situation brings us to the main issue of our conversation, general conversation. How we can reincarnate the ethical values in the modern society, whether it is possible at all. Because generally speaking, frankly, I cannot imagine, what is the effective manager. In any case, the judgment will be taken by the success of his company. And in this sense, even the most ethical person, he is put in the condition and needs to optimize the market results of his company. For a big corporation, it raises a lot of ethical questions, because, okay, you can be a good leader, release all the management strings, rely on the autonomous activity, and very effective. I agree with that activity of the people, but the goal will be still to rank first or in the first 10 of the companies of the same area. And what does it mean for a big corporation working worldwide? It means practical, even if you're ethical. Stealing. It's inevitable. You want, for Apple, for instance, big company, ethical company, I would say. People are pioneers in many things, but I'm sorry, for this company, not only Apple, but many, mispricing and price transfers. $900 billion and $800 billion a year stolen from the third world. You cannot be an ethical person within this surrounding. That's my question and also a statement. Thank you.
have about 5 more minutes on this session. Unfortunately, it's back to back because we had to add an extra session this morning, so we don't have a lot of leeway. So you have a couple more questions, and then I know you'd like to respond. Try to keep them.
Yeah, just briefly, the model that you gave us has certain evolutionary qualities different. But then you have to put that into the existential situation that we now have, and you didn't quite get to the problem of the division between capital and labor. And if I understand this correctly, that is an adverse relationship. And in some countries like the United States, legislation requires not cooperative relationships between capital and labor, but an adverse relationship. One of the very good examples of this was the case of Eastern Airlines, which was on the market purchased and taken over by a company bent on absolutely draining off its assets. The stewardesses and the pilots union got together to purchase it. And the courts blocked the purchase because they said a labor union can't own an airline, and the airline was basically finished. It was reduced to bankruptcy and disbanded. So, and those questions of the relationship between capital and labor are, at least in the United States, right on the forefront of the current political debate, where in some states, basically what some interest groups are doing is to destroy the organization of labor. I wrote an article some time ago in which I suggested corporate reforms, one of which was, if you're not using the collective intelligence of your workforce, you're not really going to be that good, you know. And some other reforms that I thought were modest, but which could. But I think the problem, I'm not quite sure how globally it plays out, but it is very early in the United States, this distinction between capital and labor. So.
Yeah, I'm very short question. Many articles, congress to the presentation. If I was switching myself off and I was switching myself into an employee who for the first time hears the soul. And to that employee, it was just like Chinese. He didn't understand it. He didn't get a clue out of it. And my question is how to, in concrete terms, overcome and transgress all the fear that's within a company. Also in a group dynamic, there's a lot of fear. And you can speak about collective consciousness, that's a wonderful term, but to many people in the room, that is Chinese. What is that? How to overcome that? And what are the concrete steps to do that? What's the, not the model, but the concrete tools, how to overcome it? That's my very plain question.
Why don't you just take a couple of 2 minutes to reply, because otherwise we
Okay, so if I have a couple of minutes, I shall try to summarize. First, I say I'm very happy because I have the feeling that we all agree both on the issue and both on some kind of solution. What I heard from you is roadblocks, issues to be overcome, but I have the feeling that we share a common goal, a common objective. So that's my first comment, is I'm very happy to hear you because you want to hear more, and you want to hear how to overcome issues. I've heard union, a blockade. I've heard life is not fair. I've heard issues capital and labor, and I've heard about ethics. These are all roadblocks. Fear, being one of them, and group dynamics. So how to overcome challenges, issues, fears, roadblocks? I think the first answer has been given by Philippe Pierre. opening space, allowing confidence and structure. This is one-to-one discussion. It's not going to solve everything, but one by one, it has a very contagious, positive effect. One type of solution. And this is also why we are not only business specialists, but we have coach, we have psychologists, we have people that deal on a currently basis with helping people evolve, leaving their comfort zone and going to the unknown. Second answer, and especially with capital and labor and ethics, I think that as long as we speak about ethics, we go into moral judgment. It's good, it's bad. And I don't know how to do that, honestly. What I know is it sustainable, is it not? So instead of talking about issues, roadblocks, I'd like to say to the person who tells me it's not ethical, we cannot, or we have roadblocks, or we have union, is, okay, but is the current situation sustainable? And usually, everybody says no. Everybody says, yeah, that's the current habit. This is the way it has always been said. This is the way it has always been done. This is what we know. Yes, but it is not sustainable. So, moving from the question of habits, roadblocks, to the question of sustainability, really puts each of us into each of us responsibility to act, to decide, and so to evolve and change. So I think I have to end up here. I'm very sorry, but I know we will have exactly a lot of space and time to discuss. Thank you.